14th century, there flourished in Africa two powerful kingdoms. To the southeast, Great Zimbabwe.
Great Zimbabwe was at the center of an international system involving settlements on the East African coast such as Kilwa, Mogadishu, towns in the Gulf, towns in the western parts of India, as far as China.
To the west, close to the Atlantic seaboard, lay the Kingdom of the Congo.
When we talk about ancient Congo, really what we see here is a Bantu kingdom. A king who is really exercising some kind of divine right of kings, their buildings, their art, their music. It's a very, very strong culture.
But with the arrival of the Portuguese began the dismantling of the Kongo-Zimbabwean network of satellite states and the diverting of their trade routes to Europe. And by the 17th century, both Great Zimbabwe and Congo were totally eclipsed.
The story of Africa, history from an African perspective. Part 11, the Congo and Great Zimbabwe, the history of the two empires and the coming of the Portuguese. Presented by Hugh Kwashi.
Professor Simao Suindula from Libreville, Gabon, where he works at the International Center for Bantu Civilizations. Then, in the late 15th century, something happened which signaled a revolution in the volume of historical information available to future generations. It all began with a medieval European adventurer called Diego Cao, landing at the mouth of the river Zaire in 1482.
Donc, lorsque l'équipage du Portugais Diego Cao arrive à course donc dans les...
When the Portuguese adventurer Diego Cao arrived at the mouth of the Zaire River in 1482 with his crew, they came up against an organized political system with a common language. They asked for a meeting with the local ruler from the people they met. These were the Soyo, and they told Diego Cao that the big ruler lived 500 kilometers in the interior in his capital Mbanza, Congo, which is today in the Zaire province of Angola.
From this point on, we can follow the history of the Congo in reports and diaries as it succumbs to the strange combination of piety and greed characterized by the Portuguese Empire. But we hear much more than this. We hear the voice of the Mani Congo, the king of the Congo himself, speaking directly to us across the centuries in a unique set of letters between him and the king of Portugal, writing here on October the 5th, 1514, from his palace in Mbanza, Congo.
Very high and powerful prince, we Dom Afonso, by the grace of God, king of the Congo and lord of the Ambundu, recommend ourselves to your highness as a king which we love very much. We want you to know that we are already Christians.
Once the opening formalities were over, King Afonso set about unburdening himself, particularly his irritation with a Portuguese merchant called Fernão de Melo.
He sold our goods at the lowest price possible. With the money, he bought a slave from Goa and another. He sent us them in one of the first ships, saying they were the carpenters. At the same time, he sent us some blue cloth, all gnawed by rats.
These are not exchanges between the conqueror and the conquered. These are letters which reflect a relationship of equality, mutual respect. One king confiding in another, discussing issues of power, piety, and profit in equal measure. The Portuguese, for their part, were amazed at the extreme piety exhibited by the young King Afonso when he had come to Portugal the previous year. So impressed was a Franciscan missionary, Rui d'Aguirre, that he felt obliged to write to the Pope.
It seems to me from the way he speaks that he's not a man, but rather an angel, sent by the Lord into this kingdom to convert it. For I assure you, it is he who instructs us. He devotes himself entirely to study, so it often happens he falls asleep over his books, and often he forgets to eat and drink in talking of the sins of our Lord.
Very powerful and mighty Prince and King, my brother. Having kissed your royal hands, your highness, I want you to know that I've written to you several times. I greatly need a ship, and you do me a great favor.
Noble and powerful King of the Congo, I have received the letters which were sent to me by your servant, Louis Yanish, and I have read what you have written. Concerning the French, I know very well that my countrymen refused to take them on board, and I see that you took this in good humor.
For the moment, let us leave the Mani Kongo and his new friend, the King of Portugal, as they enjoy their all-too-brief honeymoon period. Great Zimbabwe beckons us south.